Hello everyone, myself Abhishek. Today, me and my group members are going to give a presentation on a legal aspect of international trade and enterprise. Our topic is on Bhopal case, which is in between Charan Sahu and Union of India. I'll give a introduction of a Bhopal case, which is the biggest industrial disaster, and it was the worst in terms of its impact of people. This presentation include background, fact, and the cases which related to it. Both issue presented by both parties and the argument have a tribunal decision. This case hold a great significance in international law. This slide is presenting the background of the case of Bhopal gas tragedy. The case relates to the leakage of toxic gas from the Bhopal plant of Union Carbide Limited in 1984. This leakage resulted in a death and injuries of various people and caused damage to not only human beings but also livestock. As a consequence, various claims for payments of compensation and damages were made in court of law both in India and internationally. This case also led to a development of standard of protection and entire environment at international level. Now, my colleague Suresh will carry on this presentation. Thank you.
Hello everyone, thank you my friend for giving me a chance to talk about the facts and cases of in the Bhopal cases. In this slide, we are going to talk about the facts that are present in the Bhopal cases. Okay, this slide is presenting the facts of the case of Charan Sahu versus the Union of India, which was filed as a consequence of Bhopal case disaster. This disaster occurred on the night of 2nd and 3rd December 1984 and injured various people. This case was filed to provide these people with compensation so that they can claim their rights for damages. The incident was a result of the leakage of the methyl isocyanate MIC gas from the plant owned by Union Carbide India Limited, Paul and Vyas in 2015. Now, the next slide will explain the further continuation of this slide. So, while continuing the facts of the cases, this slide is in continuation of the previous slide. This slide is presenting the fact that various suits were filed in courts in both India and abroad to claim damages for the incident. The government of India passed an act called Bhopal Gas Leak Disaster Processing of Claims 1985 for the settlement of compensation amount of 350 crores. In this case, Charan Sahu versus Union of India, Section 3, 4 and 11 of the Act were claimed to be rendered unconstitutional as they were opposed to the fundamental rights of citizens of India, which is taken from Sahu 2012. And after talking this long, I want you to thank the whole entire team for this presentation, and I will ask my friend Syuog to continue further on this topic. Thank you.
No. Thank you, Suresh. Well, I'm going to explain slide number 6 and 7, which is about legal issue presented in Bhopal case. Well, in this slide, the legal issues presented by parties in case of Charan Sahu versus Union of India are given. The presentation is stating that the petitioner Charan Sahu claimed that the section 3, 4 and 11 of Bhopal Act must be held unconstitutional as they were violating the fundamental rights of citizens of India. The Indian citizens are given rights to save personal life and liberty under Constitution. This act is against Article 14, 19 and 21 of the Indian Constitution, and therefore it must be declared unconstitutional. This is according to Vyas 2016. This slide is presenting the additional contents made under case of Charan Sahu versus UOI. He also drawn attention to the fact that this act has an overriding effect on all other acts which are not in conformity of provisions of this act, and therefore fundamental rights of Indian citizens are being violated. Now, he also claimed that through this act, the rights of victims of Bhopal gas tragedy were being taken away. This is according to Mukherjee, 2016. Well, so this is the end of my presentation, and now I would like to call upon my friend Parth to discuss further on this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Syuog, to give me this opportunity. This slide contains the arguments presented by parties in a court of law to describe their side of case. The petitioner contended that the Bhopal Act was violative of a fundamental rights guaranteed to Indian citizens under constitutions. It also took away the rights of victims to be heard in court of law. The question was also raised on the permission which is granted to establish such factories, and then the act therefore must be held unconstitutional. We are moving on the next slide. This slide in constitution of the previous slide, where the arguments presented by the parties were discussed. In this case, the petitioners challenged the authority of central government to represent the victims. The question was also raised that the central government must not be given power under this case, as the government holds 22% stake in the company. This way it will become a judge in its own case. Sahu 2020. Now I would like to call my friend Inderjit to carry on the next slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Parth, for giving me this opportunity. Here I am going to talk about the significance of case in international law. This slide is presenting the significance of case of Bhopal gas tragedy in international law. As a consequence of this incident, the international law relating to environment are made. Striker and all the transactional companies were required to follow the international standards for establishing any business that use the hazardous substances as part of its business. Sharma 2015. So next, now we are in a conclusion. So this is a conclusion slides which is presenting the conclusion drawn from the Bhopal gas tragedy. The incident of Bhopal gas tragedy is believed to the worst disasters in history of industrial disasters. As a consequence of this disaster, various people were injured and also died. The company responsible for the incident was made to pay the compensations to the victims, and their families are for such payments of compensation. The Bhopal gas leak disaster processing of claim Act 1985 was enacted by Indian government. So this is our presentation. Thank you for giving such time, and thank you.